أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل حمده سبحانه وتعالى وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be with our listeners everywhere in the world. Uh, my name is Yusuf Mumin. I like to talk to us this day on the imperative of agricultural productivity and looking at it from the from the prism of Islamic perspective. I think as Muslims, at this point, we have gotten to a point where as Muslims we must realize that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made all necessary provisions for us to be able to live life that is sustainable and that is productive. You see, these days I see SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, talking about like if you look at SDG 12, they're talking about reasonable and sustainable consumption and productivity. When I saw that SDG imputed that as part of their goals, I just laughed. I said, this is basically one of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has encouraged us, that we must, as Muslims, we must not be shameful. I mean, we must not be shameless. Because for me, I've always said it, that it is shameless for somebody not to, especially as Muslims, not to be involved in the production chain of whatever he or she consumes or uses as service. What am I trying to say in essence? 100% of whatever you consume in your household or whatever is being used as raw material for your clothing lines, for your furnitures, for whatever, for papers and all that. A Muslim should strive as much as possible to ensure that it's also part of that product. It's also part of that production chain. And that's, of course, what the SDG Goal 12 is saying. But like I said, they picked it from the teachings of Islam, from the verse of uh, the Holy Quran, where in Quran 17 verse where of course where in Quran 32 verse 27, Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that, and it is he who has sent down the rain from the sky, and we produce thereby growth of crops and vendor of gardens. The lesson here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes the blessings of Allah in providing the resources that are necessary for agricultural productivity. So now, if you are a Muslim and you know that Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Holy Quran that He has made provisions for you, resources. Now, for some of us in the agricultural value chain, when we say resources, can be classified as your input or your implement. So now, but in this case, basically the land asset. Because for agricultural productivity, you need land resources. You need your input, that's the seed, the herbicides, the fertilizers. You also need your implements. That's where you begin to talk of the tools, the mechanical tools you need to tillage your soil and all that. Then you also need manpower. So now as Muslims, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us one critical aspect of which is the major resource, which is the land. We did not produce the land. We did not create it by ourselves. It was created by Allah the way He created us. And He encourages us that we should know that amongst all the people that He has created, the descendant of Prophet uh, Adam, that's human being now, are about the best, because He made sure that everything that we need to live sustainable life, inclusive of soil resources, He has provided for. That's why in Quran 17:70, verse 70, Allah said, and we certainly honor the children of Adam and carried them on the land and sea and provided them with good things, and we have preferred them over many of those we created. That is also supporting the first verse, the very first verse that I talked about, which was Quran 32, verse 27. And now, let's say we do not even have the land resources. How would we have been able to feed ourselves? So, but in this case, Allah has given to us. So all we have to do is just to join that productivity, that production chain. What do you need to bring? You need to bring your human resources, bring your brain power, bring little of your energy, then bring your brain resources to create implement, to create input. So now the question we should ask ourselves as Muslims is, how much of this have we appreciated by also joining the production chain? Some people use their brain to create herbicides, to create fertilizers, to mix all these things together. Some people use their brain power to provide the implements, the mechanical tools, even the lower ones, hoe, plow, tractor, all those things. You and I, the question for today is, how are we getting involved? Because if we are not getting involved, it means as Muslims, we are not following some of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do. Look at that Quran 17, verse 17 that we talked about. Allah recognizes the dignity of labor, which is what I said the other time that SDG is trying to preach. That it is shameful for a country to outsource most of the things they need because it's not sustainable. Look at when we had COVID-19. We couldn't import many resources to this country. So we couldn't even import some foods. And that is shameless for us as a people. You understand? So I think we must use the period of Ramadan to encourage ourselves that being Muslim, for me, is not limited to following the 5 pillars of Islam, doing good as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expected us. It is also very important for us to join hands in making Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala realize some of the objectives of why He has created us. Allah created us, He has assured that He will feed everybody. That's why when some sheikhs want to admonish us on the need for us not to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want in terms of abortion and all those things, they assure you that Allah has provided the facility, the provision for every human being. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is God. He won't come down to come and put food on our table. So expectedly, it's His people, His creatures that will have to get involved, which is why I said He has given us the basic one, something that we cannot create, which is the land resources. So it's now left for us to also join that production chain. And you see, the white people have joined, other African people have also joined to also say, this is my own. So the question we should ask ourselves is, whatever you are eating from in your house, whatever raw material you are using as ingredient or raw material for production of things that we need to lead sustainable life, what is your contribution in it? I am a farmer, plus being an agricultural research scientist. I also make sure that I contribute. So I'm not speaking from the angle of, okay, it's going to help you reduce cost of living. It's going to, if you produce in your garden, or if you have a farm, you produce 50% of what you eat, you only need to go and buy meat and all that. That's the economic aspect. But I'm looking at it from the aspect of also being Muslims by supporting the work of Allah. Because Allah has promised that He will feed everybody, and He will not come down to feed us. So definitely it is also like you are doing the work of God, like message. You are helping God to realize His promise to people that He will feed you. But He will not come down to feed us. So we must so I'm trying to use this to encourage us. And besides, if you want to ask, I say, is it compulsory? So I'm not looking at it that it's compulsory. But I'm looking at it as a good thing for you to also join the work of God, to help God realize what he has planned to do, because He doesn't want us to suffer. So we are the one who have refused not to join what He wanted. And that's probably why today we're talking about cost of living. We're talking about, imagine if all of us as Muslims alone just decide that if it is just one product, whether in livestock, in fishery, or in crop, I will get. Let us look at the impact that is going to make on the prices of those things. But because to you and I, we have left the world of productivity, everybody just wants to be consumers. I think as in this part of the world, we prefer to be consumers than producers, because it's just simple economic theory. The more you have the product, the less the price will be. But a situation whereby we have, even as a people, shamelessly decided to be importing some of the things we eat. I mean, it's because, and you see, in Nigeria, we have a lot of Muslims. So we should understand better. We should understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intended in Surah, in Quran 32. Such that when he talk in verse 27, when Allah says it is He who sends down the rain from the sky and will produce thereby growth of crops. So you see, this is basically talking about crops. Even if you look down, go to Quran 16, that's Surah to Israel, verse 66, Allah talked about livestock there. So what is our excuse? He said, and indeed for you in grazing livestock is a lesson. And what's the lesson? From within their bellies, we give you drink, that's milk, and from their wool, furnishing and comfort. It's not about pomo alone. In the heads of sheep, you get your shoe, you get clothing, you get a whole lot of things. So going back to the thematic framework that I lay, what is your contribution? You and I, what am I contributing as Muslim? How am I joining this? I've given us about 4 verses. Basically, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about giving us the land resources, which is the major production unit, production need, where we can, that nobody can create. So for us to make it complete, we only need to bring the input, bring the the implement, and get what? The output. That's basic need in agriculture. So we should reason from it that what if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say we should go and create land for us? Who amongst us can create land? So in not joining that chain, we are not valuing what he has created. And as Muslims, we are not following what he has admonished us to do according to the Quran. Second one has to do with where he said, okay, he valued the principle of dignity. And that's where the SDG 12 is coming from. Because if you use your hand, your labor to produce something, you are going to benefit from it. You are not only going to benefit from it, you're also going to be seen as following the admonition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your creator, because he values it and it's sustainable. It makes it much more reasonable, meaning that you are not just a consumer, you are also part of the production chain. And specifically, the verse that I quoted in Surah Sajda that has to do with crop, and the one that I quoted in Surah to Israel that has to do with livestock. So these are lessons for us as Muslims to join the production chain, the agricultural production chain. In doing that, you are not only helping the economy of our society, our nation, you are also playing your role as a Muslim who understands the tenets of Islam and the teachings of the Holy Quran. So I want us as Muslims to reflect on this, and that's why I brought these references, so that you know that if you join the agricultural production chain, you are also being good Muslims in that light. May Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of us to be better versions of ourselves, to adhere to the teachings of our religion, and also to follow the path that is going to lead to our sustainability, because it's sustainable for you to do what Allah wants to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to feed everybody, and he wants you to also join in feeding. And that's why he has created the basic need, which is the land. So we need to, if you are not in the input chain, go and join the farming chain. If you are not in the farming chain, use your brain, create implement, create technologies that can make agriculture seamless for people and all that. I think in doing that, we will be following the teachings of the Quran as we have said earlier. Once again, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us. Thank you for taking a listen. I hope that inshallah some other time we'll still have time to talk about much more on this contest, looking at the perspective of Islam that has to do with agriculture. Thank you very much. I'm MUMEEN Yusuf.